Reading is the primary source of getting information for a student in any learning setup, in any learning process. So the students actually rely mostly on reading to get the information. But what if that aspect, what if reading is affected in a student? This poses a lot of challenges for that particular student and for their learning. For most people, reading is like breathing. It is like their second nature. It's automatic. They don't struggle at all whenever they are reading. But I want to focus mainly on the dyslexic student and how they struggle in reading. Last time I spoke about the challenges they have in writing. And so I want to focus mainly on the reading aspects and see how this dyslexic student is affected. Because what happens is they put in twice effort for half the result of the other students. So this is a struggle for them. And why is it a struggle for them? It is because they are looking at the whenever they are reading, they're not looking at the whole context or the whole passage as it were as a whole. But then they are looking at word by word. They have to go through word by word. And these are the aspects that are affected in a dyslexic learner. The first thing that they struggle with is decoding. That's the decoding challenge. For them, they may see the letters, they may see whatever they are supposed to read, but then there is no connection between the letters they see and the sound those letters make. For example, they may see letters L, I, or N. Okay, for most students, for them, it's easy. Okay, lion. But for them, they struggle to see the connection between those letters and the sound the letters actually make. So that is the one of the challenges they have in actually decoding those uh, those letters or trying to make sound out of the letters they see. Then the next thing that they struggle with, which is also part of the decoding challenge, is the visual crowding. Whenever they look at any passage, any text, the letters do not seem to be stable. It's like they are moving around, they are jumping around. So for them to read, they will have to use either their finger to track the line that they are reading, or some maybe let's say a ruler to try and see, okay, I'm reading this particular line. And so you may find that if they are not using those methods, they may skip some lines. Okay, they may read the same line twice. They may add some words. Okay, you wonder where is that word coming from? It's not in the passage, but they are trying to compensate for a challenge they have. Okay, so these are some of the challenges, or this is the decoding challenge they have, especially when they are reading, and they have a challenge, especially with the words that seemingly are similar to them. Look at maybe let's say the small letter B and the small letter D, or the small letter P and the small letter Q. To them, these words or these letters seem like they are the same, and they confuse them a lot, especially when they are reading. That's the first aspect of decoding. That's the decoding challenge they have. Then the second aspect I want to look at is the comprehension paradox. Now, this is a paradox because it's not really understood why it actually happens. Because you may find that those may try to read, maybe let's say they read aloud a passage. Let's say they're in class, they read a passage. Then you ask them after reading that passage, what is this passage talking about? What is the main topic? What is the main theme of this passage? They may not have a clue. They were just reading. It is because 95% of the brain was devoted to actually try and sound out the words without taking much effort to understand what those words actually mean. And only 5% of the brain power is actually channeled towards understanding it. And therefore, they may not have a clue on what they are actually reading. And coupled with that will be the context clue struggle with them. For some students, or for maybe a teacher will say, can you find uh, what was what was this character? What was this character doing at this particular time in that passage? Let's say something that is given in the passage. For most students, they can pick it out. Okay, this character was doing such and such. But for a dyslexic student, they have to go word by word. Let's say they are given a passage that they have to look at these at particular lines in that passage. They will have to go through line or word by word in those lines to try and pick out what exactly the question is being asked, and then how do they answer. So that's the struggle they have, especially the comprehension paradox. So that's the second challenge, the comprehension paradox. Then the third aspect I want to look at this is the scanning or the skimming of the passages. For some students, you give them a passage, they can just skim through and then find whatever they're looking for. But a dyslexic learner cannot scan through a passage. It's a process that takes time, and it has to be a word by word. It can never be taken that they can just skim through a passage and then get whatever they want from that passage. It's a line by line, because for them it has to follow. It must be a sequential thing. Follow that line, find whatever is being asked to be found, and then that is how they learn, which actually is a struggle on their part. Then the fourth aspect I want to focus on is the usage of the uh, dictionaries, the indexes, or the glossaries. They may know the alphabet and sing the alphabet song, but then ask them to find a particular word in a dictionary. Now, this will require them to hold a lot of pieces of information in their working memory. And then this is a challenge to them. It's impossible. They may not get that word that you're asking them to find, although they know the alphabet. But for them to go to a specific word in a dictionary, or to go to a specific word in an index of a book, or in a glossary, whatever it is, where there has to be some order, that says they have to follow some order. For them, it requires their brain to hold a lot of information which they cannot manage. Okay, so that's the aspect of that's the alphabet navigation hurdle that they have, especially when trying to find some words that are ordered. Then the last aspect I want to look at is the emotional toll all this has on them and in their learning. Now, these students are struggling to read, and since they are struggling to read and they are putting a lot of effort, think of a situation where they're in a class and they say this is a reading exercise and the teacher is asking students to read. Let's suppose it's their turn to read. The anxiety they have, knowing that this is now their turn and knowing that they have a struggle to do this, it's it's a challenge for them. So they may try to find ways of getting around that. And in trying to get ways of getting around that problem, you may find that they guess. The dyslexic learner will look at the structure of the word and look at the first letter of that word, and they will try to guess what that word is. And then this may change entirely the context of that passage. You may find that they've added a word that is actually not even in that particular passage. And then you ask them, where did they get that word from? It is because they are trying to guess the word, trying to avoid the challenge of trying to sound the word, or looking at the letters and then matching those letters to the actual sound they make. They may try to guess that word, and in trying to do so, then it changes the whole meaning of that particular passage that they are reading. So these are the challenges they have. And let's say by break time or by lunch time, think of this learner, all the challenges they have gone through. Then you think, okay, they have worked so hard, they are so tired, they have put in a lot of effort, and the day is too long for them in learning. So these are some of the challenges, not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the aspects that the dyslexic learner has, especially reading the passages. Let's say in a class, these are students in the learning process. That's how they struggle, and that's where they need interventions for them to actually be part of the learning process. Thank you for listening.